Hello, this is Chris Pratt from Eurogamer, and I've been playing a little bit of Total War Warhammer 2. We do have some brand new gameplay coming up in which I lead an army of brave Lizardmen to victory against some crappy High Elves, but unfortunately we can't share that with you just yet. It's going to be another couple of weeks until we can do that. In the meantime, however, I've learned a whole bunch of stuff about Warhammer 2 and specifically what we can expect from its new campaign. Things sound pretty different this time around. Let's start with the endgame. Although you can win the campaign in standard Total War fashion through conquest of other races on the map, Warhammer 2 does have another objective that you'll need to be thinking about. It involves this, the Great Vortex. And if you're a Warhammer buff, you'll understand its significance, whereas I guess to the rest of us, it's sort of like a big magical soup in the sky that can either help protect the world or destroy it. Now, each of these four races has different ambitions for what they'd like to do with this magical soup. Some of them do like the idea of protecting the world, some of them not so much. And this requires them all to complete a series of different rituals across the new world, leading up to some big finale at the end. We imagine this involves a rather large battle. It is a Total War game, after all. Now, the AI-controlled races will be pursuing this goal just as you are, meaning that it's entirely possible to lose the campaign, even if you have the largest armies in the game. So it's a pretty good idea to keep an eye on how your neighbours are getting on with the Vortex each turn, and we're told that the UI will make it very clear who's currently in the lead. Legendary Lords. Right, in the first Total War Warhammer, selecting a Legendary Lord is just a case of deciding which hero you'd like to begin your campaign with. Other than the unit leading your first army and what abilities they can unlock, not a whole lot really changes. In Warhammer 2, however, things are different. Each race, once again, offers two Legendary Lords for you to choose, but they have entirely different starting locations. If you're playing as the High Elves, for example, you can go for Prince Tyrion and start your campaign with a city in Ulthuan, surrounded by other High Elf factions, or instead, you can select his brother, Teclis, and find yourself on an entirely different continent, dealing immediately with Lizardmen instead. Those two campaigns will inevitably play very differently as your initial goals, enemies, and allies all change as a result. Interestingly, the Legendary Lord that you don't choose will still exist on the campaign map, controlling an entirely separate faction to yours. If you want to recruit them, which you can, it'll require some shrewd diplomacy and an eventual confederation with them. I think that sounds great. It makes that initial choice much more impactful. The developers themselves said that yes, they've got 4 unique races, but they actually want players to think of it in terms of 8 quite separate factions. Old World races. Alongside the High Elves, Dark Elves, Lizardmen, and probably almost definitely Skaven, you'll also find that the Old World races from Warhammer 1 have a presence in the New World. These factions won't be seeking to control the Great Vortex in the same way, but you will be able to interact with them through conflict or diplomacy as you would any other race. We're told there are plenty of examples of this happening in the lore, with Old World races like the Empire sending expeditionary forces into various parts of the New World, so in terms of the fiction, it shouldn't really feel too jarring, but when it comes to gameplay, which is quite important, this just sounds more interesting to me. The more factions and unit types that we get to play around with, the better. Rogue armies. Okay, now this one is really cool. The campaign map of Warhammer 2 will feature armies made up of units from different races. We've never seen this before. These armies are also meant to make sense from a lore perspective, we're told. An example I had explained to me was a Goblin Beastmaster that had collected beasts from each of the different races and brought them all under his control, but regardless of that, once again, when it comes to gameplay, it sounds like this will provide some really unique battle setups. I did ask if we see this translated to the custom battles themselves, and was told they're going to look at that eventually, but it's not currently being worked on. Bit of a shame, but as an overall idea, I'm a fan. High Elves. Just as we saw in Warhammer 1, the various races are looking to offer very different playstyles, both in battle and on the campaign map. Now, the High Elves have a couple of tricks up their overly flamboyant sleeves, particularly when it comes to foreign politics. As a general rule, once they begin trading with another faction, they gain line of sight over everything under its control. This is the sort of information you only see allies sharing, typically. They also have a unique currency to think about called influence. This is generated by agents on the map or by solving political dilemmas that crop up from time to time, and it can be spent to alter the relationships between different factions from afar. So, the Dark Elves and the Lizardmen getting a bit too cozy, well, you can do something about that, providing you have enough influence to spend. Interesting. Lizardmen. Now, we saw a little less of these guys than the High Elves when it comes to the campaign map itself, and Actually, we saw nothing on the Dark Elves just yet, so sorry about that. But we do know the 2 legendary Lizardmen lords. Ooh, nice alliteration. Yeah, they're Lord Mazamundi and Krotgar. Probably said both of those right. Those familiar with the fiction of Warhammer Fantasy will also know about something called the Geomantic Web, an impressive matrix of natural energy spreading across the New World and beyond, and the Lizardmen temples are each built on places of power within this web. Controlling these temple cities in Warhammer 2 provides significant bonuses for the Lizardmen, especially if you get them to link up directly. So if you have 2 temple cities that can be connected across this web, and you build the appropriate building type, both cities benefit as a result. This is reflected through the use of commandments that are unlocked as more and more cities are linked together, and unlike the commandments offered by other races, which are usually pretty boring if I'm honest, you know, they offer like increases to growth, income, public order, that sort of thing, these ones are meant to feel much more impactful. Don't really know what that means yet, but sounds like it's a good thing. Capturing settlements. A lot of people didn't like how this worked in the previous game. In Warhammer 1, certain races could only capture certain cities. In Warhammer 2, every race can claim every city on the map. You can control the entire thing if you want to. That being said, some of these cities will make more sense than others depending on the needs of the race you're playing. There are some disadvantages to things like growth and public order if you capture cities that are deemed inappropriate. But yes, once again, you can absolutely paint the map your colour if that's what you want to do. All hail the sandbox. And that's about it for now. We're waiting to hear more on the Dark Elves and the Skaven in the coming weeks and months, but so far, things sound pretty promising. The campaign map sounds fresh. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more on Total War Warhammer 2 as we learn it, don't forget to give this video a like, and yeah, come back in 2 weeks' time for that brand new gameplay that I mentioned. I don't want to brag or anything, but I do play an absolute blinder of a quest battle. Cool. See you then.